I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the City Council. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Nierenheim.
Here.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Horvath.
Here.
Councilmember MD. You're on mute. And then Councilmember Grand. Okay, they're both absent, or
Just
don't see. I don't know if they're here. And then Mayor Brandt. We have a quorum. So
we have a quorum. Okay, here. Thank you very much, Eleanor. And I see a flag there. So let's all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Take a little moment of silence afterwards. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Two announcements. Councilmember Nierenheim, do you have any announcements for us?
I do. First of all, I'd like to thank, or actually wish everyone a happy new year. It's a great new year. We've had 4 days so far and a lot is going on. Vaccines are coming out and things are really looking up. And on that same happy note, I've got my first community meeting. It's usually always the second Saturday of the month, but this year I'm going to have it, this month I'm going to have it next week, Monday at 6:30 at night, 6 to 8:30. And it'll be kind of a state of District 1. Hindsight is 2020, looking forward to 21. So we're going to look forward to a couple of things that we can take care of this year, things we took care of last year that we can keep moving forward on. So my link is on my Facebook page as well as my website, and people need to re-register or register for the event as usual. And I just want to welcome everyone to a great new year and come on down and enjoy our little village down the Revere Village and do some eating out, takeaway foods, and the retailers are down there open up on the sidewalks selling their stuff. So thank you guys very much, and let's get on with the Happy New Year.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. The first District 2 community meeting of 2021 will be a week from this Thursday, 6 to 7:30. I will be sending out an email soon, probably tomorrow, with an invite, and you have to register. Or you can also click on the city website on my page for District 2 and send me an email, and I'll send you an invite to the meeting. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Hope everybody had a good holiday.
Okay, Councilmember Horvath.
Yeah, Happy New Year as well. Community meeting this month will be in 3 weeks, Thursday, January 21st. 6 to 7:30 p.m. Topic yet to be determined, and just really want to send a shout out to staff in every department, community services, public works, especially city attorney's office. The pallet shelter project is up and running and full. And it could not have been done without the amount of teamwork here at the council level and also at the staff level. So just very grateful for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Grant.
Hello. Happy New Year, everyone. And just want to say that my my community meeting will be on January 11th. That's Monday at 6 p.m. And we're going to talk about a number of different items in North Redondo, so come on out. And I want to second also what Councilman Horvath just talked about. The pallet shelter project has gone swimmingly. Wonderful. Again, kudos to everyone, the public works team that got it up and running, the city attorney's office that actually has been doing a number of different things working through that. And then just overall, the folks over at Harbor Interfaith and just everyone else who's been a part of it. It has been a great project so far. I had the ability or the fortune to go out with Lila, who works for Harbor Interfaith, and I actually spoke with 4 of the quote residents that were moving in. about 4 or 5 days before they moved in. They were so excited. They told me about how just wonderful this whole project is, to actually have a door, to have a place to put their things and to kind of stay warm in these cold nights. They were very appreciative, and been following up with those folks, and it's a really good thing. So good work, Redondo Beach. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember MD.
Sorry, we're having internet problems, and so I'm trying to fix that all up. And so thank you so much for all the work that everybody's been putting in over the holidays. Even though they were off, there has been a lot of issues over this week, and so I want to thank staff for everything they've been doing. The pallet shelters are up and running, and we've had some really good heartfelt stories for that. But the big thing that I've been watching this time is that in November 2020, the state auditor came out with the report about what's wrong with the state's affordable housing process. And this report, it's 78 pages. I recommend all of council to take a look at it. It gives us an insight as to what the next legislative problems are going to be. So I hope you guys caught all that. And but I highly recommend that we look at that, because they're showing what they're going to be doing to force certain housing down our throats on that. So thanks.
Yeah, to be continued. You could send a link to that, Councilmember Rimby, maybe to the city manager, so that he can share it with all of us. That'd be great. I haven't seen it yet. Anyway, yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Unfortunately, our hospitals are full. It's a disaster over there. A friend of mine just came back from the hospital with some tests, and there were 7 ambulances. This is at Torrance Memorial, waiting to be let in to see a doctor and see treatment. So the hospitals are full with COVID patients. So I just want to impress upon everyone to know that, be extremely, extremely careful. You do not want to end up over there. You do not want your loved ones to end up over there. Yes, the vaccines are out. People are getting them, but the hospitals are full. We are not there yet. And very few people are getting the vaccine. On Thursday night at 6 o'clock, I'll have a Facebook Live with Dr. Marianne Gauchill. She's the Director of Emergency Services for Los Angeles County. It's the 3rd time she's been on. She's a member of our Disaster Council. She's running the emergency side of things for the county. So she always has some great insights, great graphs, great data. She talks about capacities all over the county, as well as specifically about the South Bay. So, yeah, it's just important for everybody to understand they've got to be extremely careful right now, because the surge is here. And while we've got the pallet program and we've got the vaccine coming and everything, that's got to be front and center in everybody's mind, because we've got to get everything back to normal as quick as we can. And we get there by understanding where we're at and what we need to do to get there. So with that, I'll just encourage everybody to either watch that. If you can't do it, watch it later, or just be extremely mindful of your behaviors, your activities. We can visit people another time. Let's just be very, very careful. So with that, we'll move on to our regular meeting here at the City Council. First up, hang on, give me 1 second, you guys. We got several agendas for tonight's meeting. Well, why don't we first start off with approval of order of our council meeting. Any agenda of our council meeting? Any comments? Any motions to approve agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
Second.
Okay, any objections? Okay, well then so ordered. Next up is an agency recess meeting. This is a regular meeting of the Community Financing Authority. I'll call to order. Roll call, please.
Member Nierenheim.
Here.
Member Lowenstein.
Here.
Member Horvath.
Here.
Member Grand.
Here.
Member MD. Oh, you're muted. I read lips though. Okay. Chairman Brand.
Here. Thank you, Eleanor. Order of agenda. Any objections to the order of agenda? A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any objections? Okay, so ordered. Any blue folder items for this meeting, Eleanor?
No, no, Mayor.
Thank you. First up is consent calendar. Again, this is Redondo Beach Community Financing Authority. There are 3 items on the consent calendar, 4 items, excuse me. Anyone can pull any item. Anyone from the public can comment on any item. Are there any public comments on the consent calendar for the Redondo Beach Community Financing Authority? Any public comments, Eleanor?
No public comments on this item, or yeah, none of the items. Mayor.
Thank you. Any council member like to pull any item? Any council member would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by council member Horvath, second by council member Lowenstein. I'll do a roll call vote. Council member Nierenheim?
Aye.
Council member Lowenstein?
Aye.
Council member Horvath?
Aye.
Council member Grand?
Aye.
And council member MD.
Aye.
Okay, so ordered. Do you need to read anything, Eleanor?
No, Mayor, not for this meeting. Thank you.
Great. Public participation on non-agenda items. Again, this is Redondo Beach Community Financing Authority. Are there any public comments? Non-agenda items.
No public comments.
Okay. Well, there's no public hearings, old or new business. Any referrals to staff? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember MD, seconded by Councilmember Horvath. Any objections? Okay, so ordered. Thank you. The Financing Authority meeting. Next up is a special meeting of the Redondo Beach Housing Authority. Roll call, please. I'd like to call to order. Roll call, please.
Okay. If we can have both the commissioners, and I know I saw Commissioner Vogelsland. Hopefully she can come. Okay. There she comes. Okay, great. Member Nierenheim.
Here.
Member Lowenstein.
Here.
Member Horvath.
Here.
Member Gran.
Here.
Member MD.
Here.
Commissioner Linez.
Here.
And Commissioner Vogelsang.
Here.
And Chairman Brand.
Here. Thank you, Eleanor. Happy New Year, Commissioner Vogelsang, Commissioner Linez. Good to see you.
New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
How are you?
For making it. First up, for the Housing Authority, I guess, do we have any, I don't see, seems like blue folder items should be on here. I don't see it.
No blue folder items for this agency.
Don't have any? Okay. Okay, we consent calendar. We have 3 items on the consent calendar. Any public comments on the consent calendar for the Housing Authority?
Nope.
Eleanor, any public comments?
No public comments.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar or a motion to pull any item from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Aye.
There you go. I heard a motion from Commissioner Linez to approve the consent calendar. Is there a second?
Yeah, Vogelsang, second.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Vogelsang. Any objections? Okay, approval of the consent calendar. So ordered. Do you need to read anything, Eleanor?
No, Mayor, not today.
Okay. Well, that's got to be the quickest Housing Authority meeting with Are there public participation on non-agenda items?
No, Mayor, none.
Okay, thank you. No old business, new business. Any referrals to staff? Okay.
Or, Bill,
Yes.
can I just make a comment?
Oh, absolutely.
I just want to say that one of the things that we approved tonight on the Housing Authority is is a success that Redondo Beach has done on deed restricted low income housing. And I didn't realize, because Redondo does it so well, and ever since I've been on here, I've had quite a few of these come through, and that it apparently doesn't run this way at other cities. I've been told by several people that deed restricted low income housing doesn't necessarily work because the city doesn't follow through, which I find hard to believe. but it has been very successful here, and I want to commend staff for making it a priority and to make it work. And for anybody that's listening, how this works is if you buy a property based on your income in the categories, the 5 categories from LA County, when you sell it, you have to sell it that it satisfies that same income level. And this is how we can get low-income housing into Redondo Beach, and it's served very well. And I just want to commend staff for that.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly important point that, you know, if you're lucky enough to get one of the affordable units, you don't get to flip it at market rates. And that's because of the work that our staff does to make sure that the rules are followed. And as you said, and as I've heard as well, a lot of times that's not followed in other cities because you don't have the kind of administrative follow-up. So, yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Councilmember Indy. It's lost in the everything we're doing. Okay, any public participation on non-agenda items? Did I mention that already? I don't think so.
Yeah, you've mentioned that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Lowenstein, seconded by Councilmember MD. I'll take a roll call vote to adjourn. Go ahead, Councilmember Nierenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Commissioner Leonez.
Aye.
And Vogelstan.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks again, Commissioners Vogelsang and Leonez, for showing up.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Okay, with that, we're back to the since Parking Authority regular meeting was canceled, we are back to the regular City Council meeting for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Nierenheim.
Here.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Horvath.
Here.
Councilmember Gran.
Here.
Councilmember MD.
Here.
Mayor Brandt.
Here. Thank you, Eleanor. Blue folder items. Any blue folder items for tonight's meeting? I believe there is.
Yes, there is. You should have received an email related to J1, which is non-agenda items, public participation. We had a public comment. So that was all emailed to everyone.
Okay. Is there a motion to admit that to the record?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion from Councilmember Horvath, seconded by Councilmember Nierenheim to admit that one item to the blue folder. Are there any objections? Okay, so ordered. Next up is our consent calendar. So tonight we have 7 items, only 7 items on the consent calendar. Any item can be pulled by a member of the council and requested to be pulled by a member of the public. Take public comments first. Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment on any consent calendar item?
Okay, I see
Is there any public comments on the consent calendar?
no public comments. Nobody's raised their hand. And let me look at.
Mayor, while she's looking, I want to let you know, the council know that item H7, we need to pull as staff. There's some contract issues we need to deal with. So H7, we would ask you not to approve. We will bring that back at your next meeting.
Okay. So no public comments, Eleanor?
No public comments, no Zooms, no e-comments.
So I move we approve H1 through H6.
Well, does anybody, I'm sorry, Laura, I'm a little bit out of order. Did anybody want to pull any consent calendar items? Let me just generally ask that.
No, thank you.
Okay, great. So go ahead, Councilmember MD.
I move that we approve items H1 through H6.
Second.
Remove item H7. Move to the next.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, motion by Councilmember MD, seconded by Councilmember Gran, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, do you need to read anything, Eleanor?
Actually, I have nothing to read tonight.
Wow, sailing right along.
Yeah.
Public participation on non-agenda items. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on anything that is not on the agenda. 3 minutes. It's normally limited to 30 minutes. Yeah. So, do we have any public comments tonight
Yes.
for non-agenda items?
Yes, I have Holly Osborne who would like to speak.
Unmute yourself, Holly. You've been
There you
permitted.
go.
Okay. Let me start my stopwatch. Oh, I can't. My name is Holly Osborne, District 5. Good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor. Back on October 13th, you may recall that I sent you excerpts from an August New York Times article on how different areas of some cities were hotter or cooler based on the number of trees in green areas. The differences in the temperature could be as much as 4 degrees on average or 8 or 9 degrees in the extreme. In the article, the cause of the temperature differences in these areas were traced back to redlining policies of the 1930s, and often the hottest areas of the cities were in poorer neighborhoods of people of color. The article pointed out to higher death rates and more health problems in these areas. The article focused on Richmond, Virginia, although I passed out a bar graph from the article showing temperature differences of cities all over the United States. On January 1st, I received in my inbox something from National Geographic with a similar article on the importance of trees and inequities in cities. And this article had a preface on a city a lot closer to home, Los Feliz in LA County. From the article, it says, Los Feliz has a leafy tree canopy that covers about 15% of the land and is on average nearly 4 degrees cooler than the city's average. This difference has been and will be exacerbated by global warming. Right now, I am not focused on whether or not redlining policies of the past determined these cooler versus hotter areas. There is a more threatening policy looming in the future that can destroy the health of our neighborhoods just as surely, and that I shall call the concretization of our neighborhoods. Current proposed policies in the legislature that emphasize overdevelopment of R1 lots, and these are SB 9 and SB 10, are going to heat up cities and further accelerate the effects of climate change. These policies are favorable to builders and speculators, and they will zero in on the R1 zones in cheaper cities to densify first. These cities will often be cities where people of color live. This will repeat the inequities of the past, but this time it will be in the name of, quote, progress. This is the ultimate hypocrisy. What can be done to mitigate this? A city planner from another city suggested looking at development standards differently and thinks that there should be conversations about providing meaningful plantable areas. In order to have street canopies, we absolutely must not destroy front yards where people can plant trees. I realize some areas in Redondo Beach are simply unplantable. Think of the R1A areas where the tall and skinnies are. But that should not dissuade us from preserving the neighborhoods that still have front or side yards before they get destroyed by total concrete coverage. Why am I bringing this up now? Because Assemblyman Al Maritsucci sent out a survey asking what is important to us, and it's due by January 8th. I would like him to ask him, may I finish my sentences?
Is there a motion to extend?
So moved.
Second.
All right, go ahead. Take your time.
I would like to ask him to introduce legislation that allows cities to preserve plantable areas, and this could apply to medians as well. And I welcome comments from our own planning staff. Mr. Maritsucci also needs to be reminded to oppose SB 9 and SB 10. And Senator Ben Allen, our senator, is chairman of the Environmental Committee. I can think of nothing more related to the environment than this. So get moving, people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Holly. I appreciate your activism.
Okay, Mayor, we have one e-comment. Vicki, would you like to read that, please?
Yes, thank you. Submitted by Maggie Healy. Happy New Year, Mayor and City Council members. I fully support the idea of a community garden in Redondo Beach, and I applaud the efforts of Brianna Egan to develop such a program. I hope our community can achieve such a project in the new year. However, I urge the City Council not to provide any resources through the South Bay Parkland Conservancy without fully vetting that organization. The South Bay Parkland Conservancy does not appear to be a true 501c3 organization as claimed. Rather, the organization operates more like a political action committee. It has provided funding for Mayor Brand's election campaign and legal defense fund in the past, and it appears to now be providing similar support to his re-election campaign, as well as those council members Lowenstein and Narenheim. Such activity is done without transparency to the public under the guise of raising funds for park improvement. South Bay Parkland Conservancy has consistently refused requests from Redondo Beach residents for disclosure of tax records and reports, which they are required to provide to us by law. There is something very wrong with this picture. It would be highly unethical, if not illegal, for the mayor and District 1 and 2 council members to be involved in any decisions affecting the South Bay Parkland Conservancy, having directly benefited from the Conservancy's fundraising and support for their election campaigns and legal defense. Before the city provides any more resources or funding to the South Bay Parkland Conservancy, I urge the City Council, City Attorney, and City staff to review the organization's activities for the past 3 or more years and require the organization to be fully transparent to the community about their activities and their purpose. Respectfully submitted, Maggie Healy. There are no other comments submitted.
Okay,
Mayor,
thank you.
I have one more on Zoom.
Go ahead.
Zane Obaji Jr.
Howdy, Happy New Year, City Council, and the great Mayor Bill Brand. I actually wanted to dovetail on what Holly was just saying, which is, Holly, you're concerned about overdevelopment, but please remember at the end of last year, when the GPAC came to the City Council, members of the GPAC, and said, we're concerned about the RENA numbers that were being jammed down our throat. We wanted you to take this up and look at it. And then Mr. Lowenstein and Narenheim moved to put that item on the agenda to discuss it. Ms. MD, Mr. Horvath, and Mr. Gran, who purport to represent North Redondo, said, nope, let's just go ahead and add all that density to North Redondo. That's not okay. So when there's a North Redondo, South Redondo split, who's really watching out for North Redondo? It's not Horvath, MD, Gran. All right, I came on here to say thank you to Lila Omura Garcia. Over the December holidays, she was an angel for our city, getting people who are unhoused into housing when it was rainy as can be and cold as it ever gets in Redondo Beach. I literally saw her on Facebook. A business owner would post, there's a cold person outside of the great room, and she'd get down there, and within 24 hours, that person was in housing. It was awesome. It shows how great, humanity and Redondo can be when we work productively. Finally, I just wanted to mention, as I've been walking around the neighborhood, getting fresh air where we can, I've seen these cords in North Redondo, the power line. It's not just the power lines, but the utility cords. And I get that undergrounding this stuff is extremely expensive and it's probably not going to happen in Redondo Beach anytime soon. But our service providers, Spectrum, Frontier, I know the city has contracts with those people that allow them to operate here. Our city attorney getting paid $470,000 a year. Please, Mr. Webb, look into those agreements. Find out what Spectrum and Frontier's obligations are relative to the maintenance of those cords, the organization of them. I do not think that they have a right under their agreements to create blight in our neighborhoods, and that's exactly what they've done. So let's look at those closely, and let's make sure that we are representing the city's interests and the residents' interests, both homeowners and renters, by enforcing these utility providers' obligations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more public comments?
No public comments, no e-comments, Mayor.
Okay, that ends the comments on non-agenda items. So moving right along, our next item up is a public hearing. This is consider substantial amendments to the 2019, 2020, and 2021 annual action plans for reallocation of the community development block grant funds and allocation of Cdbg-CV3 funds. So I entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Actually, Mayor, we need to do ex parte communication.
Excuse me. Thank you, Eleanor. Ex parte communications, Councilmember Narenheim, do you have any to reveal?
You know, I actually don't have a single conversation with anyone to reveal on this item. So there you go.
Thank you, Councilmember Lowenstein.
Talk to the public, and that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Horvath.
Just previously staff.
Councilmember Grant.
Also previously staff. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember MD.
I have none.
I've spoken with several staff members about these funds and how they're allocated and where they've been allocated. We've had meetings about this. It's been quite a matter of public discussion, really, throughout this pandemic. So with that, I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So
Second.
Okay, any objections? So ordered. Public hearing is open. Lori Koike, are you going to run this public hearing for us?
I will attempt to. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and Happy New Year to everyone. I do have a brief PowerPoint, and then just so you know, we have our Cdbg consultant, Damian Delaney, with us tonight in case you have any questions about the substantial amendment or about the program in general. So let me get the screen back up. Okay. It takes a while. All right. Over the past few months, Council has provided direction of planned uses of community development block grant funds. So tonight we are having a public hearing to consider substantial amendments to the 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021 annual action plans for reallocation of Cdbg funds and allocation of Cdbg CV3 funds. If approved tonight, the substantial amendment will be forwarded to HUD for review. And once HUD is completed with their review process and approve the substantial amendments, the city can then begin the process of being reimbursed for funds expended on Cdbg related projects. To recap, the substantial amendment covers two different types of funds, Cdbg funds. The first is the Cdbg Coronavirus Fund. So on October 6th, Council approved allocation of the $453,000 fund amount and allocated between three different types of expenses. The first is $300,000 for creation and management of temporary emergency shelters. This could include the city's share of the monthly operations of the pallet housing program that we share with the county. And then also noted is also can be used for the addition of a housing navigator for North Redondo, which the cost would be approximately $35,000 for a 6-month period. The next is $110,000 for short-term assistance to small businesses through COVID-19 reimbursement grants. This is, it was split between, I think, $50,000 for Riviera Village, $20,000 for aviation and Artesia Corridor, and $40,000 for citywide. And just as an FYI, to date, we've received I think 11 applications from businesses, and they are currently being reviewed by our Cdbg consultant. And then the $43,000 is for planning and administrative costs. We are allowed to allocate up to 20% of total cost for administrative costs. The second type of fund is the regular Cdbg funds. It was just on December 15th that Council approved the $30,000 for the rental of 5 apartments at the Swami House International. And then there is a remaining balance of $45,000 of regular CDBG funds. So the procedure for tonight is to open the public hearing and take testimony, close the public hearing, and approve the proposed substantial amendment to the 2019, 2020, and 2020 to 2021 annual action plans. And again, we're here for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Appreciate it. Let me just ask a couple basic questions. It looks like from the staff report that we have $75,000 available for allocation at this particular point in time.
It was $75,000, and then that's what, that is the account that we're going to use $30,000 for Swami House. So that provides a balance of $45,000.
When you say $30,000 for Swami House, do you know specifically what that's for?
Yes, that's the leasing of 5 rooms for a period of 6 months.
Okay. Now, what monies have had to be expended by the end of the year? Do you know what monies had to be expended by the end of 2020? Or do you know that? There's deadlines on a lot of this funding, and I just want to make sure.
Yes, I would either have to ask Marnie for input or Damian.
Well, as long as we know that this $40,000 discretion that we have tonight is available.
Yeah, CDBG funds do not have that December 30 deadline. That was our state CARES Act funding.
Oh, thank you, Martin. I see. Okay, it was confusing. So we have the discretion tonight for $40,000. Okay, is that correct? I don't want to. Okay, there's a lot of money flying around, a lot of facts, figures. Just want to be clear. Basics. Okay, if I could make a motion, I would make a motion to allocate that $40,000 to Harbor Interfaith, specifically for Redondo Beach residences experiencing homelessness. They know how best to allocate those funds, and that's our big problem right now. But I'm the mayor, and I can't make a motion. So with that, I guess we'll open it up to anyone on the council. Let me see. Has anybody yet got their hands up? I apologize. Yeah, Councilmember Nierenheim has his hand up. Go ahead, Councilmember Nierenheim.
Thank you, Mayor Brand. Yeah, I love that idea. It's amazing the work that Harbor Interfaith has done these last few months. Last June, when we gave Harbor Interfaith $28,000, they were able to use that money in many various ways. One of the ways was when someone was reported about 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, sleeping on the sidewalk in front of everyone. And it was reported to Harbor Interfaith, Lila specifically, and she was able to get that person into a hotel room that night, off the street that night. And that's what happens when we allocate funds like this to programs like that and people like that who can really make a difference. So I would definitely I don't need to second that motion. I will take what you just said, make that into a motion to allocate the remaining funds and disperse them to Harbor Interfaith for the usage of homeless programs here in Redondo Beach for people. So
Point of order. Point of order. We haven't closed.
We're going to close the public hearing. We hear public. We got to hear from
You're right. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. But I'm just saying that that's the motion I'll make on that. So I totally agree with that. She's literally taking people off the streets, getting them in hotels, and getting them long-term housing. So it's fantastic. The return on investment for our community is huge for this group. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Councilmember MD.
I just wanted clarification on what the you wanted the 40,000 just for Harbor Interfaith itself. I mean, because there's other stuff that's going on. I just wanted to make clarification on what you actually want. Do you just want to give them money to help with the homeless problem, Mayor Brand?
Oh, me? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was just one example of what they're able to do. The flexibility they have is tremendous. And, you know, we're getting calls every day several in some cases. Somebody sleeping on the sidewalk, somebody on a right-of-way in a park. And Harbor Interfaith are the ones who are out there on the front lines every day. In fact, I've been working very hard the last week to get them vaccinated. Of all the people that should be vaccinated are our homeless counselors that, Councilmember Grand was riding around with. That means people aren't vaccinated. And when they find a homeless person, they're able, if they have the funding, to get them a hotel room, offer them services, that sort of thing, to get them off the streets. But I would favor being very specific about any funding, because I don't want it to get lost in, some sort of beach cities help. Redondo Beach CDBG money. And we get this because we have a housing authority. And so anyway, I would be specific if you choose to do that. And
well, okay, I guess that's what I was trying to get at. So if you just wanted it to help out the homeless situation and give it to the housing authority to be able to kind of work with that, that's fine. I hesitate putting it towards a certain vendor just because things are evolving, and we could possibly be using other vendors that could be helpful. So I would caution us. I think we all want to get to the same spot. I would just caution us putting too restrictive as to what vendor we'd be using that money towards. Absolutely.
I think we need to be specific tonight. I mean, we can, I think there's going to be more CDBG funding coming. I hear what you're saying. I just don't know who is more on the front lines than them. And I if it was more money, I'd say, yeah, let's give Harbor Interfaith some right now and look at other vendors. But there's no other vendors out there right now doing the work they're doing. I mean, Lila's out there every single day in, day out. But I hear you. I just,
Well, that's just it. I'm understanding that there are, and we've had some problems with those apartments that we were trying to get, and I just think that there's other forces at work, and we shouldn't be necessarily specific as to what vendor we do. But I mean, I could be way off base on that, but that's what I think I'd be more comfortable with just us working, putting it towards the homeless problem, the homeless shelter, and having some flexibility on that.
Well, whatever we do with it, maybe we can just direct staff to do that sort of thing and let them choose. But I think we need to be specific. It's for Redondo Beach. I don't want it to get lost, give it to PATH or give it to some other agency, and it's just kind of lost in their umbrella of, going around the entire South Bay because Redondo Beach gave us some money. We want to address Redondo Beach residents experiencing homelessness.
100% agree. I just don't want to tie staff's hands.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Horvath.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily disagree with the intent, but I'm glad that you asked for specificity, because I can tell you one area of specificity that would be super helpful to Lila and our other outreach navigators. But I do want to hear from staff, and if there's anything specific that we could use those monies from a reimbursement perspective for anything else we've outlaid as it relates to the emergency or anything else right now, before I make my comments related to specific Harbor Interfaith costs.
Well, let me jump in and add a couple of thoughts here. What we did basically was leave these monies unallocated. We have, I believe, 3 years to spend these monies, given the pandemic that we're in, given the multiple crises that we're in. One of the things we would need to do is have discussions with Harbor Interfaith, verify that they have capacity. They've got the ability to service us. We haven't had those conversations. They are pulled in lots of different directions, and agree that makes sense as a kind of a placeholder use for that those remaining monies. But to specifically say you can only spend it with Harbor Interfaith, I think that may restrict us in a way that could create a problem later. So I think Councilmember MD is wise to raise that issue.
Okay, so what I would say is if we do need to be a little bit more ambiguous at this time, but also maybe give direction about specificity in the event that it could be used. What I would say is, and maybe Chief Kaufman would want to weigh in on this because he and I have had this conversation, and this is a conversation I've had with Lila. We're trying to figure out ways to make her efforts and her team's efforts more effective and efficient. And what really drags her down is when she has to spend an enormous amount of time doing the paperwork for each of the individuals she's trying to get housing ready. And so she would be the first to tell you that, if there was a way to have any costs go towards admin help for her or the outreach navigators in processing the information, filling out applications, anything related to the paperwork. And I don't know if that's something we can do internally through the PD, having a part-time person, or if that needs to be through Harbor Interfaith, but that is definitely a holdup in her being able to do what she excels at, which is connecting and reaching out to the individuals, the unhoused individuals that are on the streets. So just keep that in mind as part of this conversation. Thank you.
Yes. And then one other thing, our CDBG consultant just reminded me that in a few months we'll be coming back with the additional public service agencies and their requests, the annual process. So that will be taking place soon. And then also another note is that if we were to work with one specific organization for those funds, that we would need to have some type of proposal as to how those funds would be used.
I guess my comment would be we're going to have more funding coming, correct? In those several months. So that's a usual, sounds like the annual allocation of CDBG funds that are coming in several months. So this is what was it? $45,000, $30,000? I forgot the amount. I apologize. Yeah, it's available right now, and if we just wait, then we just wait and it just sits there. So I think we should use it. It's needed now. I don't think we should be waiting. So if there's some rules or something we should follow, or I still haven't heard specifically what the problem is with giving it to Harbor Interfaith. We've done this, but I hear a lot of talk about, well, it could be, it might be, and whatever. Meanwhile, Lila's going out tomorrow morning to work with people sleeping on the streets, and they need resources, and the more we give them, the more they can do. So, but again, we got to be judicious about this. I just don't want it to sit there because I haven't heard any reason for it to sit there. Councilmember Lowenstein.
Yeah, Mayor Brand. Yesterday, actually, I passed somebody on 190th who was sitting on the sidewalk, texted Lila. She was there within minutes, so she's incredibly efficient and effective. And so I would agree with you that they're a worthwhile organization to give this money to. To Councilmember Horvath's point, I thought that we had funded a second housing coordinator, and their responsibility would be to actually do a lot of the paperwork and free up Lila, as well as take care of the overflow in North Redondo that we talked about. So I thought we've actually already allocated a person to do that. I thought, Laura, you had mentioned it at the beginning that we had funded that. So I may be mistaken, but I thought we've done that. And, to another note, a lot of these eviction notices, eviction moratoriums are expiring now. I know the county's talking about extending theirs, but we're going to have a serious problem on our hands, even with the pallet housing over the next 6 months. I mean, this is going to be pretty tragic. What we're going to see, it's going to get ugly. So, if somebody were currently a vendor that were, planning on coming here and servicing our homeless or unhoused, that'd be great. But I don't see that happening right away. So I would be also in favor of what Mayor Brand said in terms of funding and Mayor and Councilmember Narenheim. So, this is something that we need to do quickly. To bid it out, it could take months. And, whatever it is, if we have to come up with some type of a solution, like Lori said, we can ask them for a proposal, but I would think we should allocate it for them so we can get going quickly. It's going to get pretty bad over the next few weeks and months. So thank you.
Are there any public comments?
We have no public comments, no e-comments or, no Zoom comments.
Okay. I see.
I think, Mayor, at this time, I would just ask Damian Delaney, our consultant, to weigh in.
Great. Go ahead.
How to use the remaining funds. Damian, are you there?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Damian Delaney. Pleasure to be here tonight. If we are going to choose to allocate the funds to Harbor Interfaith, it could be an email that we receive for them saying how they're going to use the $45,000. It's as simple as that. We put it in the file, and then when we do our audit later in the year, we'll just make sure they're using it for that.
Great. Thank you for that, Damien. Any other insights you want to add?
Well, we're following the Congress pretty closely to see if they will approve another stimulus package that would include states and local governments. If they do, that usually means we would be getting another round of funding to help. What I've heard recently is as one of the, I think it was Council Member Lowenstein mentioned, the moratoriums, the eviction moratoriums are slated to end in the next 60 to 90 days. And there's going to be a lot of folks probably out on the streets. So the Housing Authority will probably be the lead on that. That would be getting, and since Redondo has its own Housing Authority, it would be getting the funds directly.
Okay, thank you, Damien. Stand by. We're going to have some more questions. Councilmember Horvath, you had your hand up before. Did you mean to have it up now?
No. But I will just say in response to Councilmember Lowenstein that is not my understanding based on conversations with Lila. So I'm not quite sure. I just know that there's a need there. I thought the second navigator was to focus on doing the same things Lila does, specific to North Redondo. So either way, housing navigators, part of their duties is to do paperwork related to the clients that they work with. And so I'm just trying to address something that was made verbal to me. And if we don't do that, tonight, I'll continue to find money for her somewhere else.
Maybe staff could clarify. Thank you.
Well, I can clarify. I went on a ride along with Lila. The first place she took me was the 405 freeway at the border of Redondo Beach. So she's covering right now north and south. She's got the whole town. We allocated monies for another coordinator. I don't know when that's coming on. This is extra money on top of everything we've already done. But if staff has some other comment to fully clarify more, I'm happy to hear it. Lori, do you have anything to clarify, or Todd?
Are you asking about the housing navigator specifically for North Redondo?
Yeah. First off, let me just say, everybody, Lila's been covering North and South Redondo. Okay. This is not, we're getting a navigator now for North Redondo. We've had one navigator for Redondo Beach. And so now we want to get a separate navigator to cover, and so that we will have two navigators covering Redondo Beach. So what's the status of that, Lori?
I don't know. Joe, if you do have some updated comments on the housing navigator for North Redondo?
I know that we had discussions with the Harbor Interfaith. It's on their radar. We're waiting to hear back from them related to their ability to staff the position. We've got the dollar amount. It's within the $300,000 that you allocated. There's funding, I believe, in the range of $30,000 towards that. In terms of their ability to specifically fulfill or fill that position, I don't have specifics on that. So no, that's all I have to share.
So the money's been allocated. They know that we have the money. We're waiting for them to come to us with basically another person within their organization to help serve Redondo Beach.
I did make the inquiry prior to holiday and just will need to follow up.
Great. Thank you. Okay, the next hand up was Councilmember Narenheim, then Councilmember Indy, and then Councilmember Grant. Councilmember Narenheim.
Yeah, thank you. I think if we're done taking public comment, do you want me to
No,
close?
well, you can close the public hearing if you want to, but you need to finish your discussion first. Can't believe we're still having this conversation. When we have a public hearing, we open it, we have discussions, we take public comments, we talk about everything, we ask staff questions. Then when somebody's ready to make a motion, only after all discussion has been concluded and there will be no further questions of staff, then we close the public hearing and we start making motions. So if everybody's, it doesn't look like we're done with discussions because hands are still up.
Okay. All I was going to say was that, Lila doesn't work alone. She has a partner named Ramon, and they have plenty of people in the background doing the paperwork, and we don't need to burden our staff with doing any more work, whether it's police or any other department. They are extremely efficient, far more efficient than the other homeless provider that we have, PATH. And so, again, we need to be giving our monies to people that can utilize the money today and move forward with it. We have the pallet shelter done, ready to go, filled actually, I should say. And the last thing I have to say is I actually have someone that I'm going to be reaching out to Lila and everyone in the process for someone who's sleeping in their car right now in a church, not even in my district. Resident contacted me, and I know this money will go directly to that person to get that person out of their car. And it's an older individual. And like Councilmember Lowenstein said, 2 months ago, I dealt with a resident, not even my district, who got who was thrown out of their apartment. And so, these are all things that we can have Harbor Interfaith do. They have the resources. We need to give them the money to fulfill those resources.
Okay, Councilmember Emdy.
Look, I don't want to, I just didn't want to air a lot of the dirty laundry, if you will, about all of this. Is that Harbor Interfaith, we had the 5 apartments to go rent and they backed out. So we're going to have to go through another vendor to get those 5 apartments. And in addition to, we're going to need somebody to do some kind of census of all our homeless people in Redondo Beach. Harbor Interfaith isn't necessarily the right group to be doing that. And it's so we are going to have very soon other vendors coming up. We need to have the flexibility on this funding. I'm not saying Harbor Interfaith isn't fantastic. They are fantastic. They're wonderful. We couldn't have gotten where we are without them. I have no qualms about that. I'm just saying is that there are other vendors going to be helping us solve this problem. And if we're specific, I'm afraid we're not going to have funders to be able to pay for that. Now, having said that, I agree there's more money coming down the pike, but I think these vendors are going to be able to be online within the next week or 2. So that's how come I'm saying what I'm saying. So just give me a little bit of trust on this. I really think I'm right.
We can bring this item back, right? I mean, if we continue it, I assume we could, bring back some other vendors up here, some other need. If we don't do something tonight, I would imagine we could bring it back.
We can assign it tonight. It's not a problem. We just need to let them have some flexibility. It can, if staff feels that it should go to Harbor Interfaith, by all means, it'll go there. I'm just saying is let staff have some flexibility on this.
When we talk about other vendors, what I learned from the city of Bellflower is, we have this annual homeless count, and a lot of that governs certain funding and what we were required to do. And Bellflower hired an outside vendor to do a true homeless count. Let's face it, that annual homeless count, a bunch of untrained people going around for 2 hours, 3 hours a night, and they, it's not a professional organization that does a proper count of the homeless. Yet many things are driven by that. So the city of Bellflower went out, hired their own firm to do a more accurate homeless count, and it was much lower than what had originally came out. And they were able to figure out who was actually a Bellflower resident that was homeless and. So that might be a good use of those funds as an idea. So.
And I'm not doing a count this year, so.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, that organization was CityNet, as you recall,
right.
And I'm in talks with them now. As Councilman MD mentioned, there is a bit of a conflict of interest with Harbor Interfaith, with our apartments in the city of LA, based on the reaction from the council member in that area, and CityNet, I don't believe, will have that conflict. And so I'm in contact with them and may return. So I would suggest you do allocate the 40,000, but not limit it to a particular vendor. And the other point I would make is that we've had Lila for over 3 years, and she's fabulous. But the reason she's become so effective is because all the things that we've done over the last year and a half. So, homeless court was basically a way to what obstacles are getting in, her way of getting people housing ready and permanently housed. And the reason the person was able to get an apartment that Councilman Nierenheim mentioned was because you had given approval for the Wilmington apartments. And so it wasn't an indefinite hotel stay. As Councilman Nierenheim mentioned, Lila's not our only housing navigator, but she was the only one who was allowed by Harbor Interfaith to transport any of the individuals to the pallet shelters. It didn't matter whether they were her client or not, and that's because she had a vehicle that was safe to the minivan that we, the city, donated to her. No one else had a vehicle that was safe to transport people under COVID. And so a lot of it is the more flexibility we as staff have, the better you can make her effective. And Lila will tell you it's been like night and day, her effectiveness, once our efforts over the last year and a half. Because you had multiple dedicated people, and there are few as dedicated as Lila, but if you don't remove the obstacles towards her getting them housing ready, that's not as effective. So I think it makes sense, as you're saying, that this is for homeless in Redondo. It's a Redondo program. I wouldn't recommend PATH for the reasons that Councilman Nierenheim, No, I wouldn't recommend PATH. But I may, in fact, bring back to you CityNet to, in fact, do a homeless census, because there's not going to be a point in time, and because theirs was so effective for the reasons that you articulated, Mayor. Well, they also do homeless outreach.
For our purposes tonight, Mike, are you saying that we should allocate the monies with the discretion? But we need to allocate the monies.
Yeah, allocate the money for to address homelessness in Redondo Beach, and leave the vendor unspecified, and then we'll bring back to you if CityNet works out, great. If CityNet doesn't work out and Harbor Interfaith can handle it, has someone available and can remove from the conflict, that's probably even better. But that will be coming back this month if you allocate the money.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. That was very helpful. Councilmember Grant.
Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to top that. So why don't we close the public hearing, and then I'll make a motion.
So there's a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any objections? Okay. Any motion?
And then I'll make a motion to allocate the $45,000. It's actually not $40,000, Mr. Brand, or Mayor Brand, but $45,000 to homeless issues in Redondo Beach.
Okay. Is that adequate motion for Mike, for the purposes you described? It sounds like it. Just want to make sure. Okay, there's a motion and a second by Councilmember Horvath. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein? Aye. Councilmember Horvath?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
And Councilmember Indy?
Aye.
Okay, great. I don't think you need to read anything. Yeah, I think that's just kind of it.
No, Mayor, nothing to read here.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I guess we're just city manager items. Discussion and possible action regarding the city's local emergency pertaining to COVID-19. Joe.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor, council members. This is the standing item that we have on your agenda, pretty much had on every agenda since March of last year, related to COVID-19. since we were before you last on December 15th, as we've referenced earlier, the situation with the pandemic in Southern California has significantly worsened. We still have the stay-at-home order at the state level affecting Southern California based on ICU capacity being dangerously low. We're bracing for, I don't know if it's a spike on top of a spike on top of a spike, but we are anticipating additional cases based on additional community spread. There have been some new developments since, even within the last couple of weeks, since we last met. We've gotten some limited access to vaccines. I want to specifically thank Fire Division Chief Isaac Yang and Bob Metzger, who worked and coordinated a positive rollout of the vaccine to our fire employees. Many eligible fire employees received the vaccine at the first dose, and any surplus vaccine was made available to first responders in the police department. So that's probably about the best news we have tonight related to positive developments. We have, since the beginning of the pandemic, worked closely with Beach Cities Health District, as you're well aware. We are working with them as well in having further discussions about what role that we can play together related to assisting with education, assisting with potentially further distribution of vaccine as it becomes available. We do have Tom and Jacqueline with us here tonight. I would like to call on them. They've got some information they can share in terms of cases in LA County and our area in particular, as well as the categories for individuals to receive the vaccine and what's being discussed. So, Tom and Jacqueline.
Great, thank you. Mayor and Council, good to be with you tonight. Jacqueline's going to kick it off and go through some of the numbers, and then we're going to talk about our draft vaccine strategic plan that we've put together and show you some highlights of that. So Jacqueline's going to start us off.
I hate to interrupt Tom and Jacqueline and Joe, but what's front and center on the mayor's mind, and I think the council mind, is getting Lila O'Meara vaccinated.
Okay.
Out there every single day dealing with the homeless. And we've seen the outbreaks in the homeless population, and there's nobody more on the front. She's driving unknown homeless people to get help, either getting identifications, coming to our pallet program. She's out there every day. And if anybody in Redondo Beach public service should be vaccinated, and that should be Lila. And I've been inquiring about that. And the last I heard, she was on some sort of list with no defined date. So that's not really helpful. There's a lot of lists out there. I really, really need, as you move forward and as you give this thought, to find a way to get Lila or any other frontline homeless counselor vaccinated. Thank you.
Great. We'll talk about that briefly, show you where she is on the list, and then we can talk about reaching out directly regarding that. So.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mayor, members of the City Council. Wanted to just provide a brief update on where we are with the numbers and talk about the vaccine status and distribution plan. So today we report an additional 13,512 cases in LA County and an additional 224 deaths. As Joe mentioned, we really are in the thick of this pandemic, of this surge with our case rates, our deaths, our positivity rates, as well as our hospitalizations. And so you see this chart and graph where since probably the beginning of November, a really sharp and steep increase in cases, as well as, unfortunately, in deaths here as well. Just in the beginning of December, county had 400,000 cases, and at the end of December, we were close to 800,000. So you see how quickly we have doubled our cases in just a span of a month. I know that hospitalization has been something that we've been talking about in terms of our hospitals being really stretched thin. And this is a chart that kind of shows where we are in terms of hospital utilization. This is from the county. This is for the month of December. This is specifically for ICUs in the South region of LA County, which includes the South Bay, includes 13 hospitals. And so it will orient you to this chart where the red bars are the number of confirmed COVID cases. The gray bars are those that are non-COVID in the ICU, and the blue is the current available staffed beds in these for the total of these 13 hospitals. And so we see, for example, on December 31st, we had 6 available ICU beds. And those red circles indicate the percentage of people in the ICUs that have COVID. So this is an extremely high COVID census rate with 76% of the people in the ICUs there because they have COVID-19. So today we reported there's 7,989 people hospitalized in LA County with COVID-19. That's the highest number we've seen. It's close to 300 additional hospitalizations since yesterday, and those numbers continue to be high. And as Joe mentioned, our ICU capacity remains very low. The state says it's 0.0%, which means that we continue to stay in our stay-at-home order issued by the state. So quickly, wanted to show some of the metrics of where we were prior to the spike, the surge, and where we are today, just 2 months ago, November. So an 800% increase in daily new cases. Almost, so we see an 868% increase in hospitalizations, almost 1,000% increase in deaths, where we're close to 200 deaths per day now, this past 7-day average. The LA County positivity rate has increased over 350%. And similarly, at our test site, we're at a 15% positivity rate, which is close to a 300% increase since we were 2 months ago. And this in the beach cities, some cases in just the month of December, the beach cities saw 1,136 additional new COVID cases. That is more than August, September, October, and November combined. So we really are in a pretty tough situation right now. But as we mentioned, there is a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. This is a slide that you've seen in terms of the prioritization of the vaccines. As we know, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines have been approved and are being allocated across the country, across the state, and in the county as well. I think there's been over 100,000 people vaccinated in the county alone. This chart just demonstrates while vaccine supply is limited, there's going to be a phased approach and who gets prioritized. And as we know, phase 1A is healthcare workers and long-term care residents. And within this phase, there are 3 tiers. And so we get a lot of questions about when is it my turn to get vaccinated? So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the prioritizations, as well as some updates that just came from the state today. So this is the latest information. In tier 1, we are in progress of doing that. That includes all of the residents and workers of skilled nursing facilities and other long-term care facilities, as well as healthcare workers in all these listed here, especially we're talking about the acute care hospitals. And so that is in progress. Those who are in hospital settings are in the progress of being vaccinated if they aren't already. Many are receiving their second doses this week. And phase 2 is also, tier 2 is also in progress. So you see, this is where Lila would fit in, settings caring for people experiencing homelessness. We have seen this week specific groups in tier 2 being invited to have an appointment to make an appointment for their vaccinations. And from the county work group meeting that I was just in, we'll continue to roll this out to more groups in tier 2 in the coming weeks and progress to tier 3, which is here. So this is all of tier 1, 2, and 3 for healthcare workers and long-term care residents. You see that we have to prioritize based on these specific tiers because the supply is limited. And so after phase 1A, we go to phase 1B and 1C, and we had some guidance from the CDC, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices set some guidance before the end of the new year. And just today, the state has further used that guidance and set their guidelines for who gets prioritized in 1B and 1C. It's a little different than what we had seen the recommendations from the ACIP, and the CDC. So here we are with phase 1B. It's divided into 2 tiers. So in tier 1 of 1B, it's individuals 75 and older. And then it's those they would call kind of frontline essential workers working in education, childcare, emergency services, and food and agriculture. And then tier 2 of 1B, so this includes those 65 to 74, and then other essential work that are frontline, including transportation, logistics, industrial, commercial, residential, sheltering facilities and services, critical manufacturing, and congregate settings with outbreak risks, including incarcerated and homeless. And then we move to phase 1C. So you see that this group includes individuals 50 to 64 and anybody 16 to 64 with an underlying health condition, and other essential work that isn't covered in the phase 1B phase. So this was just released today from the state, and so the county will then further operationalize this, provide some more details and definitions for who would qualify, and then we'll see after phase 1A, this is how we would move into phase 1B and C, and eventually move into phase 2, which would be for the general population that's not covered in one of these prioritized phases. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tom just to talk about the strategy that we've been working on in partnership with the cities and our partners for how we roll out the vaccine in our community.
Great, thanks, Jacqueline. So this is a draft of our vaccination strategy, just starting to roll this out so you can see that our goal is to provide education, of course, make sure that we have accurate information regarding the vaccine to address concerns about vaccine hesitancy. There is some of that. I think we've talked a little bit about that. I think Gallup had a survey a while back that showed 60% of people would take the vaccine. It needs to be higher. And so one of the things that we're working on at the health district with our chief medical advisor and other medical resources is doing videos and basically providing people with information regarding the vaccine so that people can make a decision regarding the vaccine. And it's one that we hope that people will choose to take the vaccine. We also want to align the resources that we have in the beach cities between the health district, the 3 cities, 3 school districts, and the business community. We've been successful doing that as a beach community here, whether it was in relation to what to do with the beaches or businesses or recovery plans or testing. And so we think that's something that we should do together moving forward with vaccination. And so that's something that we've started to do. We've started to align our resources within the 3 cities as well as with the health district. And we're basically looking at different potential providers, vaccine sites. You have a list there on the second bullet under strategies that could include, of course, private sector with clinics and pharmacies. But then there are going to be these things called MPODs, which are medical points of dispensing. Redondo Beach is currently applied with LA County to be an MPOD, as has Manhattan Beach, and Hermosa is a registered MPOD. So we're working with, obviously, your fire department, Manhattan Beach Fire Department, LA County Fire, and Hermosa, and really just bringing everybody together, similar to what we were able to do with testing to see if we can get vaccines to the residents of the beach cities as quickly as possible within the guidelines of LA County. And so that's something that we're working on. We'll go next slide. So we just wanted to talk about, okay, what does that look like? And Jacqueline just went through the various tiers and phases. And so within 1A, it's primarily healthcare workers. And so that would be test site staff, vaccination staff. So if anybody within the cities or the health districts are actually providing vaccinations, they would get vaccinations. And then healthcare field staff, that would be an area that Jacqueline talked about as far as getting a vaccine for people working with the homeless. We're seeing some gaps that we're working with the county on. I think public safety is one gap, and that's one for police officers. that Redondo has been able to address within the guidelines, and that's one that we hope we will continue to be able to do. And so we're seeing, okay, in this healthcare worker phase 1A, how are we going to access it? Where are the vaccines going to come from? So we see clinics or pharmacies as a potential place, and then closed medical points of dispensing. And so that is where we think the vaccines, or the vehicle, if you will, for providing the vaccines. Then in phase 1B, we think that one thing to look at for older adults, obviously they may be able to get them through other sources, but we think there may need to be some mobile strike teams or some ways to go to the people, if you will, to make sure that they receive their vaccines. These are people that are our clients at the health district as far as social services that we provide. We have about 350 older adults that we provide services to in partnership with you and Redondo, of course, and the other cities. So we're talking about how do we make sure that they get vaccines for people that cannot get to the vaccines. Maybe there's some transportation solutions. Maybe we go to them. So those are things that we're looking at. Then, of course, 1C is other essential workers. So how do we get vaccines to food service? We think, again, these closed medical points of dispensing. So what that means by closed is they're not open to the public yet, because the public is not in the categories that are prescribed by LA County. So that's why they would be closed. And then pharmacies may have an opportunity to serve those essential workers as well. And then for the general public, which would be in phase 2, we think that clinics and pharmacies are going to be a point of vaccine distribution. And then there are these discussions of what are called super pods, which are these locations for public vaccinations, which would be very large sites, like stadiums, Dodger Stadium, big parking lots. It's not like testing where on a relatively small footprint you can handle a lot of cars, because there needs to be a half-hour sort of wait period, 15-minute to 30-minute wait period to see if there's any sort of reaction to the vaccine. So working again with the county, working with the COG and other partners to see, is there a super pod in the South Bay area that could serve the public when that time comes in a few months. So again, we urge anybody that would like additional information to go to our website. We're going to be doing a big push. As you can see, that's one of our top priorities and strategies for vaccines, is getting the education out about vaccines. So we urge people to go to our website at bchd.org, COVID vaccine. And then we're doing another one of our Safe in the South Bay panels, and that's going to be February 4th from 5 to 6:30, and that's going to be all about vaccines, where we're going to have medical experts there, and we'll have the latest information about vaccines, and hopefully we'll be starting to talk about when the public will be receiving those after the February timeframe, of course. So that's just a quick overview. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, I got the questions I had about where Lila fits in. And when I spoke with her, she emailed them back. And as I said, she's now on a waiting list. So.
Yeah, the good news is they're in tier 2 right now. It's a matter of finding out exactly where she would get the vaccine from. And Jacqueline sits on some committees there with the county. So that's something we can assist with.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I've got a couple of other items. We can come back for more questions with Tom and Jacqueline. Thank you for being here. I had one item that I wanted to follow up on from your last meeting. You had lots of discussion about what could be done to reduce the fees for parking citations charged during days of street sweeping. There was an hour-long discussion wherein you finally opted with giving direction to explore reducing the amount of the fine to $25. Basically left that with staff. If there's a way to do that bring that back or implement it and bring it back for your confirmation. Obviously, we had a major rain event since your last council meeting. We do believe it's important that we get people to move cars and that we sweep the streets. So we are continuing to do that. But based on your discussion and direction, starting tomorrow, we have directed we've directed our staff and the vendor that provides the parking enforcement software to reduce the charges for any street sweeping violations to $25. Right now, it's a $45 charge. We have done research. Out of that $45, there's $13 worth of state fees and processing fees that come out of that $45 amount. So there's $32 that the city normally receives. It's out of that we would reduce the amount down to $25, which is what the tickets would be. This does not come without cost. Based on the number of citations written and the level of activity, there is a direct cost to the city of doing this of $50,000 to $60,000 per month. So we can do this, and we are doing it based on your direction, but I'm only doing it for a month. And we're going to need to have you look at that on a month-to-month basis and see, is that really worthwhile to keep doing? So anyway, this is set to begin starting tomorrow with any citations that have been issued. We kind of toyed with the idea of, should we instead recommend just completely suspending parking enforcement for street sweeping. We don't like that option, just based on what happened with that major rain event that we had. We think there's more problems associated with that, and there would be a kind of an even bigger financial hit to the city of completely suspending parking enforcement. So we will do this. It will be in effect for a month. You will have the opportunity to take action to affirm that or change that. We weren't ready for that resolution for you tonight. We'll bring that back at your meeting next week. So those are the comments tonight. I want to thank Tom and Jacqueline for being available again, and we look forward to coordinating with you in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for running those numbers, and thank you, Jacqueline and Tom, and Happy New Year. Yeah, thanks for looking into that, Joe. Just let me clarify a few things, because I'm sure some people have some comments. So the state gets $13. Does that mean if we reduce the fine from 45 to 25, that Redondo will now only be getting $12? Or is some of the state fees a proportion or percentage of what we're finding? You follow me?
We would actually be receiving less than that, as far as, because we have to pay the fees per ticket. It's right. $13 per citation. It's not a percentage. It's a fixed dollar amount. So the reduction to $25 for the entire violation. Basically, that $45 fee would go to $25. The $32 that we receive would go down to like $12. I mean, the number, it may be $11.50 or something, but it's essentially reducing the amount of monies that we would receive from parking violations by about 2/3.
So is that where the $50,000-$60,000 comes in?
Yeah, when you take into account the number of violations that happen, typically per month, it's $50,000 to $60,000 worth of lost revenue. That represents the going from $45 to $25.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. You talk about problems. What were do you have an example of problems caused or that you worry about if we had no enforcement and we had one of these big rainstorms. Was it a clogging of drains that could cause flooding? That's what I think it is, but
that's what it is. And Ted, you're out there somewhere. Ted, can you power up, maybe even give the example of the one flooding event that we had during the last rain?
Good, thank you, Joe. Yes, Mayor, it actually boils down to exactly that. When we have a sudden and an intense event like we had during the holiday break, you have a very huge surge of water that comes through. And if there are debris and material that are on the street that have not been swept, it's going to get carried through the gutters right into the catch basins and or into the screens that are at the catch basins, which could plug up very, very quickly and truly back up and create some flooding issues. And I think with the last storm that we had a year ago, or at least the one that we experienced some concerns with, that plugged the drain pretty quickly and the water started to back up onto the adjacent property rather quickly. That is a concern that we have, especially during a time when we do have a lot of trees that are shedding their leaves at this period.
Okay, so we were enforcing and we didn't have that problem, but if we weren't enforcing and we were in the situation we were last summer, we could have a real problem if we had big rain events and things got clogged.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if we don't do anything, Joe, then basically you're going to go ahead and implement that for a month and come back to us with the option of continuing it or ceasing it.
Right.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Nairnheim.
Thank you, Mayor Brand. Yeah, before I start talking about the parking issue, I'd really talk about the vaccines, and that's a big deal. I just want to let everyone know that actually I got the Moderna vaccine just over a week ago, actually, and it was a quick and simple, painless problem when I first, a shot when I first got it. It was. I got it through the LA County Fire Department because I'm a lifeguard down the beaches, EMT. I'm on the front lines. I've worked, Project Room Key, many other places. I could actually work another event right now. And, I just want to let everyone know what my experience with the vaccine was, and everyone should be taking it. There's a great videos online about how the vaccine works. It does not include the actual coronavirus. You cannot get the virus from it. I filled out a form on my phone. Went up to the nurse, gave me my little checkoff sheet to say that this is the lot number, this is my date I'm returning, and just like the flu shot, just really quickly just went right in my arm, pressed in the vaccine, alcohol on top, little swab, make sure it doesn't bleed. Real simple. Literally 30 seconds. The whole process took me about 2.5, 3 minutes to do. I did have a little bit of side effects from it. As the days went on, my arm got really, really sore, as if one of my older brothers, when I was young again, hit me really hard in the arm. There was no swelling, no blue bruising or redness. It just got sore. That's it. And I did feel fatigued that a few hours later. I actually ended up taking a nap, and I was like, hey, why am I tired? Got up, and then was fine, and then felt really fatigued again. Had a little bit of achiness as if I was getting a cold, and it kind of hit me like, wait a second, I think I'm getting cold or something. And I looked up and I realized, nope, this is just a vaccine. And so I went to bed early that night, woke up the next morning, felt like $1 million and nothing else of it, other than a sore arm for another day or two. So I'm going back on the 27th for my second dose, and it was real simple, painless, and just, really want to recommend everyone out there, if you can get it, get it. There's plenty of vaccines available right now for those who are in queue. I know that they're nationwide having some trouble getting these things out there, but if you can get it, get it. It's super important, especially the earlier you can get it, because 20% of the population in LA County has already had coronavirus. So the more that we have people who are vaccinated out there, we get that herd immunity that everyone talks about. So, Joe, I got a question for you. I know Manhattan Beach has an allotment of vaccines coming their way. What is our allotment for vaccines? I know the fire department all got fully vaccinated. Is our police up next? And what's the allotment for the public coming like? Because I know Manhattan Beach has something coming through FEMA.
I'm going to call on Tom and Jacqueline in terms of, and also Bob and Keith, if you have any additional information to share. From what I understand, we were asked for the specific number of vaccines in the fire department. We calculated that. We provided that to the county. Those are the vaccines that came. We actually went a step beyond what some other cities have done in that we are able to administer the vaccines. We don't have to send our people someplace else. We're able to do the vaccines ourselves. So Bob, maybe Bob Metzger, if you want to share the steps that we've taken to get that additional certification.
Good evening, Council. Can everybody hear me okay?
Happy New Year, Bob.
Yeah.
Well, back at you, Mayor. Thank you very much. Hope everybody has a good year. We took some extra steps to get some of our additional people who volunteered qualifications to administer vaccine, not only to our own people, but within the city, with the calculus that we would be providing the administration of the vaccine to our police officers, and then possible consideration once PD has been taken care of administration to other 1B and 1C groups that are eligible for the vaccine. There's a lot of steps associated with this. It took Chief Yang, who was our principal facilitator for all of this, quite a bit of extra work to really put together a program that by the third day that fire was receiving it really flowed smoothly. So we've got a lot of the learning curve behind us. We're prepared to step in as we may be needed, but these kinds of programs are extremely time consuming because there's a 30-minute observation period that is required for everybody who receives the vaccine, where the individual is observed for any adverse reactions or anything that would suggest that they're having a bad experience with the reception of the vaccine. So these things take time. There's documentation and so forth, and there really wasn't a plug and play process for us to really jump in and take care of it. We did it largely by the seat of our pants, identifying what was required by the county and then how we were going to put those things in place too. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions if you all have any, if I'm not addressing any of the other issues that you might have.
Well, his specific question related to allocation of additional vaccine for police. And so I know Keith has provided that information to the county. Keith, can you share kind of the information that you've shared and what you've heard back?
Sure. We've been speaking with LEMSA, which is a local EMS agency. They're our contact who we're supposed to receive the vaccine from. And on the 4th, I'm told, hoping for February. So a couple of weeks ago, we thought maybe by the 14th of this month. However, the latest update I have is February. What we do have, though, is the authorization from them to allow our fire department to receive the dosage and administer them to us, which is going to be a great help, especially because of that wait period. So we're very grateful to the fire department for that, and I'll keep you posted as soon as they allow us to pick them up. We're going to go get them.
So they're saying February right now, Keith?
Correct. That's what I was told on the 4th.
Hey, Jacqueline, can you put up your slide that showed where the police department would fall in terms of public safety?
Sure, yeah. They're technically categorized in 1B under the essential, frontline essential.
Here in phase 1B.
Right.
So are they right there with the fire department, or are they below the fire department?
Fire, because they have their EMS and paramedics are in tier 1A because of the health, they're considered healthcare workers. And so we have more of the emergency services at least currently categorized in tier 1 of phase 1B, which as of today, what I heard is they're hoping that it can start in early February, just like what Chief Kaufman said.
So where are the police in 1B? Is it tier 1 where those?
Yeah, so they're right here. So those at risk for exposure at work in the following sectors: education, childcare, and emergency services. So that's where at least for the categorizations of right after the vaccines for the healthcare workers, then they're looking at older adults, and those are frontline essential, which is for now what emergency services, police is included in that.
And then someone like Lila, who's one of our housing counselors, fits into tier 2.
She's actually in 1A because she's considered a healthcare worker that works with in settings with people experiencing homelessness.
Tier 2, though.
Tier 2. Yes, tier 2 of 1A.
Yeah. Can you go back?
This is 1B and 1C, so this is after.
Yeah. But I'm confused. Is this before Lila, this phase here, or after?
This is after Lila.
After.
The police are after Lila.
That's an example, Mayor, of sort of one of the gaps that we're seeing. We think there's also some gaps as it relates to inspectors or public works employees. And so these are things that we're working on with LA County. I think the Councilmember Narenheim's question about Manhattan Beach, we had heard anecdotally that there was some discussion of some allotment. We checked with the city and they are not confirming that. They're not aware of that. We had heard about that anecdotally as well. I can't emphasize enough that you're in a good position with what your fire department has done as far as being a registered provider. That's a very big step. And so you have some of your officers that have been vaccinated, police officers that have been vaccinated within compliance with the county guidelines because of that. So I think your staff's to be commended on that. And it's something that we want to continue to work with you, as the chief mentioned, within resources and within partnerships to see if we can address some of these gaps that we're seeing. We have some gaps as well with our folks working at the test site that we're trying to address as well.
So if the fire department has an extra vaccine, they certainly, seeing how Lila's higher up in the police, which is amazing, she could certainly receive a vaccine from the fire department.
They would have to, that would be something that they would have to sort of get approval for, if you will, or it'd have to be sort of more of a formal process. But yes.
Formal process to get approval for the police that they're vaccinating?
Yeah, my understanding is that needs to be signed off on through their provider network that they administer.
Their provider network that they administer.
So they're a vaccine provider, and so they every dose is regulated in how they do that, and they need to get approval if they have extra doses, and so that's something. Again,
we've all heard the stories of that the vaccines come in I don't know what you want to call it, packages, or and there's a certain amount, and once you thaw them out, there aren't enough people in the vicinity, then some go to waste. So I assume maybe I should ask Chief Metzger. Chief, what vaccine is the fire department administering? Is it the Pfizer or the Moderna?
It's the Moderna.
And I thought it was a Pfizer one that had to be kept at a low temperature. Why does the fire department have extras? I mean, all the firemen been vaccinated?
So the vaccine is allocated to us in vials, and they ask us to provide a rounded up estimate for the number of people or the number of vials that we would need to vaccine whatever number of people we've registered for any particular day. So there's almost always going to be some surplus at the end of it, since we're rounding up, because if we have something less than 20 as an example, and we have vials that would provide, say, anywhere from from 24 to 30, we have a surplus that's available. And that's what we were using to provide to the police department when we offered it to them. Initially, we were actually looking at some other entities that we might be able to vaccinate. And our provider network suggested that that would not be within the intent of the 1A, phase 1A, tier 1, or tier 1A requirements. So we had to change plans and go to PD.
Well, it seems like Lila, though, the way I understood it, the way Jacqueline presented it, is actually above the police. Did I misunderstand, Jacqueline, what you presented?
Nope, that is correct. She's somebody who works with who's considered a healthcare worker within the homeless setting. Is prioritized in tier 2 of 1A.
Well, I see, okay, so they had to classify people, and people are in certain tiers and phases, and I understand they had to do that. So, anyway, I don't understand. Chief, has the entire fire department gotten their first dose of vaccine? Is Moderna? I thought Moderna was only 1 dose, and that was it. Are they both?
Moderna is a 2-dose series, spaced, I believe, 28 days apart. Might be 21 days apart from Moderna. I think Pfizer's 28. But all the people in our department who indicated an interest in receiving the vaccine have received their first dose. We've had an 83% participation rate.
Okay, that's great. So you don't have any more vaccines until 21 days goes by?
Correct. Well, let me say, we don't have any additional for the fire department. Once we start with any other groups that we're participating with, we may get more if we are vaccinating any other groups.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I interrupted Councilmember Nierenheim. He had the floor. I apologize, Councilmember Nierenheim.
No worries, Mayor Brand. No worries at all. Those are great questions. The things I was going to get to anyway. So yeah, you can answer my question regarding the police. Who's next? I talked to someone over in Manhattan Beach who has actually a good line. So, Joe, I will talk to you offline about getting in touch with certain people there at Manhattan Beach. They have good connections over there that I want to make sure that we are all in talking with. And they have sounds like a large allotment coming towards them way. And my last question on the vaccines in terms of rollout. Who determines what stage we're at? 1A, 1B, 1A2, 1A1? Is that the state or is that the county?
That's the county. And I think that right now in 1A, where you have different tiers of 1, 2, 3, you're seeing that we're in tier 1 and tier 2, and we'll slowly move into tier 3. And it'll be a pretty distinct shift over to 1B. I mean, we will know when we're moving over to 1B because it's different populations that are outside of the healthcare setting. But it's the state, and I think that's also determined by the enumeration of how many people are kind of raising their hands that qualify in phase 1A, as well as what their allocation is that they're getting from the state.
So to that point, it's the public health department, not the county board of supervisors, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So once the county, the board, the public health department deems that we've been completed, we've gone through the 1A phase, 1A2 or whatever it is, 1A1 phase, we go to the 1A2 phase. And so the more we let them know that we're done with our phase 1A1, they can determine that and move it forward for all of us beach cities and as a county as a whole. Then I'm suspecting, right? Okay. Because
there's some overlap. I mean, you're in 1A2 right now and 1A1, and so it's not quite as sequential as you were saying. But yes, it's very important to move through the phases.
Yeah, because my thinking here is want to make sure that I know the right people to contact so that they know we're ready to go, and the more people that let them know, the better. Because I want to get this vaccine rolled out to all employees and frontline workers and 75 or older, and start going down the line. Communication here is going to be extremely key why I brought it up last December, and I wanted to make sure we have this in place. And yeah, I'm also well aware of the throwout factor, the vaccine that does go bad, because if you open up a bottle at the end of the day and you only have 1 or 2 left, you can't use it the next day. So I want to make sure that we, you know, that's something that was brought to my attention last week. So, you know, to that effect as well, as we're going through this, you know, Mayor Brand has Dr. Marianne Gauchel Hill on Thursday night, like you said. That's a huge thing. You know, I just did all my EMT recertification. She was front and center on all the research continuation paperwork, education I had to do. And I just want to tell everyone that, you know, I saw some posts on Facebook regarding a lot of these medical directives that are happening. And it's really important for people to understand what's happening to our EMS system. And when I say EMS, when you pick up the phone, call 911, what happens if you need to go to the hospital, and how it's not controlled by us, it's controlled by the county, and how the impacts to the ER room and the ER system and the waiting room impacts how our paramedics work on the front lines. And understand that it's a whole system in place, and how the system is being managed. And you know, I can't tell people more to come on Thursday to watch Mayor Brand's event with Dr. Hill, because it's an education that people need to know. I see a lot of stuff on Facebook, people thinking they're experts. A lot of people on social media, got some emails and phone calls by people saying, you know, oh, this means this, and it doesn't. So, you know, the EMS system is totally overwhelmed, and but we're managing and getting through that. So I want to plug that event for Mr. Mayor Brand one more time. It's really important.
Yeah, it's Thursday at 6, folks. If you can't make it, it'll be recorded and up there for future viewing.
Perfect, thank you. And then regarding ticketing, you know, Joe, I was really glad to see that during the holidays we didn't have any ticketing or enforcement. You know, at least on the people that I got in contact with, they had their cars in the way, and the thing just went around, and there wasn't any tickets. So that was really awesome. We do that every year, so that's not any different. Right. I mean, I'm in favor of reducing the amount, but I also could say there's a lot in just doing something and not telling people that we're doing something. So rather than turn it into a big deal, why don't we just continue on doing our enforcement, but not ticketing unless it becomes an issue on a street, and continue on doing our street sweeping. Just continue doing it, because I'm looking at the forecast right now. I'm seeing sunny skies. I'm seeing a beautiful, you know, everything else along the way. Torrance, the Hollywood Riviera area, where half a bunch of tree section there, they aren't doing the street sweeping. I totally realize it's important, and now that we had our first flush, everything's gone to the ocean, our streets are clean. So I'd really advise that maybe we can just do the street sweeping and just not do the enforcement unless it's a particular problem on a particular street, because I want to do everything I possibly can to support stay at home, safer at home, safer in place. And that's how we're going to keep these numbers down, by not going outside and congregating in large groups. People are staying at home and working from home. So, you know, I can't reinforce that enough. So that would be my vote for that. I see another hand up, so I'll let it go from there. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember Lowenstein.
Yeah, real quickly, I had the same question. How are we going to let people know that the tickets are down to $25? Do we even want to let people know it's down to $25? Is it like going to be a pleasant surprise if they get it, but it won't be a pleasant surprise because they're still getting a ticket? I mean, while I appreciate the fact that we're lowering the cost, the day after we discussed this 3 weeks ago, I saw social media flooded. I didn't say a word about it, by the way. I didn't say anything on Nextdoor. I didn't say anything on Facebook. But there were over 100 and something comments about this. People are mad. I'm not sure you guys are getting this, but they're really mad that, you know, we're doing this in the middle of a pandemic. I understand what staff's saying, but it doesn't seem to be a huge issue. I mean, there's been other times when we've not swept, and it's not all of a sudden like the whole city's gonna be flooded. But I'm not sure we're gonna have the votes to do this, but personally, it's great that we lower the ticket. I think that's commendable, but people aren't going to know any differently. And again, I will say this again: it's not moving it for a couple hours; it's moving it for 3 hours or 4 hours each side. That's like 7 hours of a week. It's not something insignificant to a lot of people, especially my area has plenty of parking normally, and it's crowded. I can imagine what it's like in districts 4 and 5 and 3. I mean, it's 3 especially. There's nothing up there. So that's what I'm going to say. Thank you.
Now's the time to say it because there are no more hands up. Any public comments? Eleanor?
I see no hands and no e-comments.
Okay, is there a motion to do anything? Otherwise, I guess, like you said, Joe, you're going to reduce the fine for a month to $25. And my position is I appreciate you doing that. It took some work. And I guess the ticket just spits out a fine at $25 instead of $45. And,
and I'm doing this based on the very clear direction from the council on December 15th. This isn't something that we brought to you as a recommendation. This is something that the council developed as part of the conversation last time. We had an item on the agenda, a COVID update, and we sort of like the vaccines. We knew there was interest in the vaccines, so we were prepared to talk about that. We knew there was interest in street sweeping, so we were prepared to talk about that. We didn't know it was going to go in the direction of going to $25. So I'm doing it based on your direction.
well, I mean, personally, I appreciate that. I mean, it was a compromise, and that's why we talked about it for an hour, because we went back and forth between doing nothing to leaving it the way it is to, okay, let's just reduce the fine. So it was a compromise. I don't want to talk about it for another hour. And I know it took work, and, one of the questions, how hard is this? And well, we found out they just reprogram them and it's out 25, and we at least show some sensitivity to the situation by reducing the fine while still doing the street sweeping. Because it's important. I mean, that's a messaging I'll have for people. It's important that we street sweep and that we've reduced the fine to show some sensitivity to the fact that the situation we're in. And we stay at home, and it's very, very difficult to find parking in many, many neighborhoods. So anyway, Councilmember MD.
Just a question, the $50,000 comes out of what budget?
Well, this basically will be reduced revenue to the general fund for parking enforcement. And so we will need to account for this whenever we bring back the mid-year budget report. And I'm recommending this for a month. We will have another council, your first meeting in February, we'll be able to revisit this. And then we will also have the mid-year budget shortly after that in February. So it's the general fund.
Or we're just agreeing to a month, and then unless we come back with a recommendation to extend it, it doesn't have to, right? We would have to then come back and say we want to extend it.
Correct. Yeah, okay. That we will be back in front of you with that particular question. It's not going to just continue indefinitely. So the order that I'm doing will be for a month.
I guess I'm saying it doesn't need to go back unless we ask for it to come back. I would think that'd be because I mean
that it could just expire. It could be a month, but not longer than a month.
Right.
Well, and Joe's bringing
unless we want to come back and bring it up and say we wanted to extend it. So I think that would be the better way to go.
The interesting thing is that the reduction in revenue by an order of the city manager is really ultimately would require a 4/5 vote if it was an expenditure, right? If we were spending the money, but since we're just reducing revenue, it doesn't require 4/5 vote. So that's an interesting point.
It's unusual, right?
Okay, that was all I had to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Indy. There are no hands up. If we don't do, we won't have to do anything. Just go with the city manager's order, and we'll revisit this. I assume, Joe, you'll be bringing up our COVID response, if not at every meeting, pretty much every other meeting.
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't see hands up, so let's just move on.
Mayor, before you move on, for the public hearing The motion needed to include, approve the proposed substantial amendment to the 2019-2020 and the 2020 and 2020-21 annual action plans. That wasn't included in the motion.
I will amend my motion to include those two items.
I think we need to reopen the, do we need, no, we closed.
No, we don't need to open the public hearing. It's just, that was.
Go ahead, John.
So I'll amend my motion to include those two items.
Great.
I'll second that. So
Great. So I guess we'll just have a roll call vote on that. Councilmember Nairnheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Grand.
Aye.
And Councilmember Endy.
Aye.
Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, mayor and council items. Councilmember.
Mayor, I have a couple of other items under city manager reports I wanted to share with you. Just items that are coming to you at your next meeting. We'll have both closed session as well as open session items at your meeting next week. We will have labor agreements with two of the employee groups, CEA and PSA. They've gone through the ratification process and we have language in place. So we'll be bringing back to you those labor agreements as well as the compensation plan for management and confidential employees at that meeting. So those will be before you at your meeting on January 12th. We will also at that meeting have the follow-up report seeking your input related to the public amenities plan that you've talked about at the waterfront and kind of a strategy for those investments. So we will have that item before you on the 12th, as well as a follow-up report and parameters for development of the inclusionary housing ordinance. So kind of a heavy agenda next week, closed session and open session. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, mayor and council items. Councilmember Nairnheim.
You know, at this time, I don't have anything other than thank you guys for your hard work and all the stuff you guys did over the new year, even though you were closed. There was some storms and everything else that happened. So thank you. And of course, the holiday lights down in the Torrance area. I want to thank Public Works for getting on that because the holiday lights is always an issue, and those poor residents on Messina Drive and Avenue H get impacted pretty hard. So thanks for that.
Okay, Councilmember Lowenstein.
Yeah, not much other to report other than I'm asking people to, again, mask up, stay safe, help is coming. So that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Horvath.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Grand.
No, thank you.
And Councilmember Endy.
No, thank you.
I have one item, Joe. I've gotten two complaints now, and I've been remiss in bringing this up at a council meeting about the parking meter lights on the Esplanade. It's just like flashing into people's homes, and it's just red or green, whether somebody's expired or not. Is there any way to turn down the intensity of those and even shut them off at 9 o'clock? There's no parking there starting at 9 o'clock, 9 to 5. So could you look into turning down the intensity of those and possibly program and turn them off at 9 o'clock, since you can't park there anyway? You don't really need to know how much time's left.
Yeah, I believe this has been looked at and we do not have the ability to turn it off or dim the light. Keith, if I'm wrong, I know this isn't on the agenda, but Keith, if there's anything to clarify.
This has already come up. I didn't know about it.
It has. It's come up a few times, and there is no ability to dim them or shut them off. It's either on or off. And they were selected because of partially because of that feature for enforcement. So there was a couple issues that were remedied by the meter itself being turned, but it still needs sunlight. So if you have a specific complaint, send it to me direct with where the meter is, and we can see if we can mitigate that specific meter.
Angle it differently. Okay. All right. I'll look at it. How the meter's working out, by the way.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes our meeting, our first meeting of 2021. So I want to say Happy New Year again to everybody, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Remedy, seconded by Councilmember Horvath. Are there any objections?
Man, Nils, you're getting none of it tonight.
He's just not giving me any love tonight whatsoever.
Subconscious, I'm sure.
It's too funny.
All right, you guys. Good seeing everybody.
Oh.
Everybody in a week. We have a council meeting next week. We'll have 3 meetings in January. So
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.